And welcome to Carnal's Bible Study. Uh, in the beginning is where we're starting, as any good story is supposed to start. And this is the first book of Moses called Genesis, which is also something that's interesting to note. This was not, even according to the Bible's own admission, this wasn't written in the time of Adam nor Eve. This was given to Moses when he was liberating the children of Israel. So, even according to the Bible, this is a retrospective look as to what happened during the days of creation. So, in this chapter, God creates this earth and its heaven and all forms of life in 6 days. The creative acts of each day are described. God creates man, both male and female, in his own image. Man is given dominion over all things and is commanded to multiply and fill the earth. And that is what is contained in this chapter. And the very first thing that stands out to me is when we say in the beginning. And the really important question to ask yourself is, in the beginning of what? Because most Christian faiths, they tend to suggest that when it is written in the beginning, that it is the beginning of all things, the beginning of God Himself, the beginning of existence, and that is not, in my own
It's not
opinion,
so.
it's not necessarily true at all. I mean, this is God describing in the beginning of our earth, our time, and our existence.
Yes, in the beginning of time.
Let's put it this way. When you were to sit down with your child at bed at night, and the child asks, "Hey, where did I come from?" Very rarely does the parent describe their own birth and life story. That's just not how it works. As a parent, you don't start with yourself. You
Lay down in the chair. See, it all started when I was 5.
yeah. No. I mean, if you really want to go back, you might want to describe the time when there was a twinkle in your eye and you and your wife looked at each other longingly. That might be as far back as you go. But when a child asks, "Hey, where did I come from? Why am I here?" Um, you start. You don't start with your own existence.
No, but you do start with their existence. And I know when my children ask, where did I come from? I certainly don't start with, oh, well, it would be right after you were born. I always start with when, I start, well, when you were in my belly, when you were in there, you did this, I could feel you did that. I had one who did somersaults, one who punched away. you know that's often where I start.
I think I like the one who did somersaults better.
mm.
Now that they're finally out of there. Anyways,
uh-huh. And so yes, specifically time, our time, we believe that
this
he
is the Bible and Genesis is our story,
right.
not God's.
Right, and it is believed that he created other places, perhaps other beings.
He could have created many other things before he got to us, and I'm fairly certain he will continue to make
Right.
more things after us.
Oh, right. I mean, why? How could you wield such?
Like, if you have this power, why would you stop?
Right? Why wouldn't you be like, oh, I'm just gonna make this Matchbox house?
Yeah,
I
no.
mean, like, are you kidding me? Let's make this and that. Um, and then we go on to um, verse 11 in Genesis 1, right?
Mm-hmm. And this is interesting to me because it says, "And God said, Let the earth bring forth grass, and herb yielding seed, and fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth, and it was so. And the earth brought forth grass and herb yielding seed, and God saw that it was good. The reason this actually caught my attention is because we take order for granted. And that was just the idea that we live in a world where if you plant an apple tree, if you plant an apple tree will grow.
Right. You don't get a cactus.
You don't get a cactus. You don't get a pear. You don't get and I truly think that order and consistency is a gift. It's not a given. And the more that I don't know. I think that the more we look into things, into cosmic bodies, if we look into space, if we look into even, I mean, I understand that science is real and that there are rules for it. But in a world where spontaneous combustion exists, I don't think it is right for us to take consistency and order for granted. I don't know. I don't know if that's just me being.
Well, I think it's good that we can take it a little for granted. I mean, it's a good thing. It was made that way so that we could, so that there would be order, and we could actually live our lives without being like, oh, suddenly, an anvil fell on my head, or
Well, yes, but in a world without order, the anvil might not be that destructive.
Right.
Wile E. Coyote is, well, he's actually not alive and well, but that's for other reasons. But no, I don't think that. I think something as simple as order had to be constructed and constructed by something.
I think that's a good. I think that was a good, insightful thing to point out. Like, that's not. I take order for granted. I mean, I took for granted. I went right by that verse, and you were like, "I'll pick that one." I was like, "All right, I'm interested to hear what you have to say about that."
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting how you can find little kind of golden nuggets, even in the verses you've read before. So.
Again, this again. Many Christians, many other people, I'm sure, will read through that verse and go, "Well, yeah, of course, duh." But clearly, it had to be stated. So maybe not. Of course, maybe there is something there that God had to take a little work in consideration for.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It just seemed like there was effort to make this happen.
Yeah, and we don't know if that was like, rough draft number 10. We don't know if there was like
How many times did it take?
We don't know what that might have looked like. That must have been crazy. But here's another one you chose. You chose verse 24.
Which is the same thing for, animals.
Right.
Them bringing forth things after their own kind. I'm like, have you seen that, what show is that? There's a couple of shows that Cat Dog.
Oh. No, I haven't seen that.
I mean, it's silly, but it's, the creature has no butt. It's just a cat on one side and a dog on the other.
So educational. All these
very.
wonderful shows our kids get to watch. Not that Tom and Jerry was any better, but
Well, I mean, it's just you have to wonder what other crazy wonky things was there, and then we go into nature today and we find things like the platypus.
That's your favorite animal.
It is my favorite animal.
That's
because
right.
It's the one thing that clearly denotes there is a divine
That's
being.
right.
Here, I'm going to create a mammal with a duck bill that lays eggs, and the males are going to have poison feet.
But see, that's what makes God God, right? Is that's one place where he's like, don't you dare take order for granted. Don't
Exactly.
you dare.
Exactly.
Because I could do this all over the place.
And oh my gosh, the I don't know, life, we take order for granted. It is my primary point here.
Let's see. You was it you? Oh, no. I chose 26. And God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, over the cattle, over all the earth, and every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth." And the reason I chose that one is very often comes up the discussion about us being made in God's image.
Mm-hmm.
And I find it interesting in here that it says, "Let us make man in our image." It specifies in our image, and then it says after our likeness.
Okay, so this is not, after God's imagination. There was already a clear cut template.
There's a blueprint there already.
And,
So,
and I also caught something there. It's let us
right.
in our. These are plurals.
Yes, which is to say, he did not create us alone.
Well, now that's a controversial statement for most of Christianity.
Right? Uh, and so we believe that um, there were other people involved.
Yeah.
That's what it tells us right there. Um, well, we can discuss that later.
Well, I actually like the second part, and let them have dominion over essentially everything that God has created up until this point. And we have to ask ourselves, what does that mean, and what is God comparing it to? And for me, when I see that, it's like, oh, he is giving humans the same kind of power and control over these other creations that God has power and control over everything else that he has power over. Potentially.
Some, I think, limited, right? Limited.
Well, and that's the thing is we don't know.
Well, yeah, we do. I mean, can you go and just make a cow out of nothing?
No, but we can selectively breed the cow to make it
You
what we want.
can, and so that's limited. You can't throw a piece of dust in the air and say, "Hey, let's make a cow." You know what I mean? So it's limited. It's not quite the same, but it is some dominion. If I leave to run an errand, and I, have, my eldest say babysitting my kids, I'm not going to be like, "Hey, yeah, go run the oven and the stove." I'm not going to give her full like access to everything. I'm going to be like, I'm going to give you limited power here on what you can do. You're in charge, but she knows, not to do anything extremely dangerous.
Well, yes, but what is interesting is, we're having this discussion about the nature of, divine dominion versus earthly dominion, which is important and nuanced and has to be said. However, if you go to like the original translation of created heavens and the earth,
Mm-hmm.
if you go back to the original Hebrew, it means not like from nothing. It means literally to have been organized, to have been put together.
Well, again, we don't, I'm there, we don't know what version this was.
The Old Testament's rather consistent because it was done by Hebrew, done through Hebrew. But anyways,
But I wanted to point to something here that looks interesting. It says, or actually, we already pointed this out. I wanted to talk about how there's a distinct difference between make man in our image and after our likeness. Why do they differentiate image and likeness? You know,
oh, that's actually pretty cool. Well, obviously, image is what we look like.
right?
Uh,
Likeness is what? Like our behavior, like our thoughts, like our consciousness.
yeah, our temperament,
And that,
our potential.
right. And so that's what that speaks to me when I read that. Um, anyways, interested in hear comments and thoughts on that because I hear I've had one or two other conversations about that. Now, 28, was 28 yours or was it mine?
I think it might have been mine.
Okay.
And again, we have God reaffirming, oh, this is where God commands them to be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and to subdue it and have dominion over everything that is on the earth. And then he emphasizes the need. I think you got the next verse
Um,
because you were talking about how God gave them these things for meat.
oh, right. He says, I just thought it was interesting here. It was just a tiny thing. I thought it was interesting that it says, that it shall be for meat. I was like, oh, okay. So we need to remember that meat, when it's this word in the Old Testament, it doesn't mean meat necessarily of,
It doesn't mean
it
flesh
doesn't necessarily mean
necessarily.
flesh. In fact, it means food, sustenance, you know,
Yes.
that kind of thing. So,
No, we are not making a vegan argument. I just need to lay that out there right
no,
now.
well, and certainly not, because if you move on, which I highlighted verse 30. Verse 30 is mine. It says,
Uh huh.
and to every beast of the earth and fowl of the air and to every thing that creepeth upon the earth wherein there's life, I have given every green herb for meat. And it was so. So there's, he's given greens as well for food.
And of course, it was all great. It was all fantastic. It was all
Mm-hmm.
functional. And that is the end of the sixth day and the end of Genesis chapter 1.
Mm-hmm.
And we will continue on to however many chapters we feel like doing next time. But this was the very beginning. And is there anything else you wanted to bring up, Mrs. Carnal?
No, I'm just really interested in hearing everyone's comments and thoughts, and yeah.
Also, like and subscribe,
Mm-hmm.
as always. And Mrs. Carnal wants to hear from y'all. So, if you have any questions or if you would like to point out some uh, false teachings and heresies, please do that of your own accord. We like your opinions and robust discussion. Anyways, guys, stay carnal. See you next time.